Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe with Mary Kay Cabot, recording this here on a Tuesday on the eve of the Browns schedule release. Maybe you're hearing this the day of the schedule release. We do know one of the games already. We're going to get to that here in a second. But this is the Hey Mary Kay edition of the podcast. These questions are from our Football Insider subscribers. A day later than expected. We had to pivot a little bit. We did a JOK pod yesterday. If you missed that, go check that out on our feed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But let's get to this, Mary Kay. Cleveland.com/Browns is where you can become a Football Insider subscriber. And we will start with this question from Christian in Hudson, who starts with the rumor that the Browns will play the Vikings again in London, and that obviously was proven true today. He says, hey, Mary Kay, what else should we expect from the schedule release this week? I'm going to jump in, though, and let's just talk London for a second, because I actually texted this out. This is kind of a tough break for the Browns because it's supposed to be a home game, but instead they're going to have to go play in London against a team that has been on that side of the Atlantic Ocean for probably at least 10 days before that game. It's essentially more of a home game for the Vikings than it is a home game for the Browns. This is a little bit of a tough break when you really look at it, because the Vikings, of course, are playing in Dublin the week before.
Right, so they will be acclimated to the time change. They will be acclimated to their surroundings for the most part. I'm not sure exactly when they'll come over to the UK, but maybe they'll be there by Monday or Tuesday, I would think. And the Browns, I think, aren't going to be leaving Cleveland until about Wednesday. So they will have the disadvantage in terms of time change and getting acclimated and all of that sort of stuff. But it's football, and you just have to go do what they tell you to do when they tell you to do it. Nobody feels sorry for the Seahawks that they have to fly all over the country and log so many miles every year, as do a lot of those West Coast teams. So I think that it's just something that the Browns are just going to have to find a way to dig deep and go out there and play a football team that went 14-3 last year, finished second in the NFC North. Really, really good, sound football team, well-coached team, and they're just going to have their act together pretty early in the season. This is week 5, so they're going to have to be ready for prime time very early.
This is a really difficult schedule this year, and we'll obviously spend time on it once we get it. But you look at the teams they have to play; even the bad teams are going to be like New England, right? That's a team. I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team next year or not, but they have their quarterback. Mike Vrabel is their coach. It's never easy to play a Mike Vrabel coach team, and he's going to be real fired up to play the team he worked for last year. The Bears, it seems like they're going to be better this year with Ben Johnson. Even the Jets with Aaron Glenn, it seems like he's kind of bringing in a new culture. It doesn't seem like they're going to be kind of a pushover like they've been in years past. This is a really challenging schedule coming up for this football team.
It really is. And I meant to look this up and I haven't yet, but just in terms of strength of schedule, from a victories or one-loss record last year, I think the Browns are right up there at like number 2 or number 3 or something like that.
I think it was. Sure. I know I've seen it in the top 10, but I'm not sure if that's based off records last year or based off projected win totals. But it is challenging. It's really, really hard.
And just in your own division, obviously, it's very, very difficult. And it looks like they should have a healthy Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And we'll see what happens with Trey Hendrickson. But a lot of these AFC North teams had good drafts and added a lot of talent. We know what the Baltimore Ravens are all about. So you've got just the strength of your own division. But then you look outside of it, and you're right. I mean, it is really a tough schedule. And I've talked to coaches before in the NFL, and they say, we always look at strength of schedule. And we know that it makes a massive difference in your season if you have a hard schedule or if you have an easy schedule. It makes all the difference in the world. And when sometimes in the years that you have an easier schedule, it can kind of be fool's gold because you get lulled in this false sense of security, thinking that you're really, really good. And then you hit the playoffs and you haven't been battle tested during the season by some of the toughest teams in the NFL. I thought that happened to the Browns in 2023. And so, it's got its pros and cons, but they've got a tough, tough slate this year.
Yeah, so Warren Sharp does the win totals thing, the Vegas win totals, and he has it as the second toughest schedule in the NFL, like you said, behind only the Giants. So you're talking your division teams, but you've got the Bills, you've got the Packers, even the Dolphins are, that's going to be, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs or not, but they're a good team. The Vikings, the 49ers, then let's see, of course, the Bears, the Lions, the Pats, the Raiders, the Ravens, Steelers on there. I mean, like, it's just a really challenging schedule with a lot of good teams. Just having to play that NFC North is going to be tough. But like you said, a lot of it does depend on kind of when you play a team or what, and some of it's unpredictable, right? No one expected the Browns to beat the 49ers a couple years ago, but they ended up playing them on a really rainy Sunday. Some guys got hurt, and the Browns won that game with PJ Walker at quarterback. So, you just never know exactly what it's going to look like if you've got a really tough team in like week 14 or 15. Who knows what kind of state they're going to be in? Who knows if their quarterback's going to be healthy or if their top receiver is going to be out for the year or anything like that. It can change dramatically from when we get the schedule in our hands tomorrow night versus when the Browns actually play these games.
So true. So much of it depends on injuries and are you catching a break during that particular week or whatever the case may be. And once again, when you do look back to 2023, I have said this so many times. We've talked about this so many times on this pod about all the different things that happened that year that helped the Browns get to 11-6 and earn that wild card spot. There was a lot of stuff that went on that year that didn't necessarily result in them being super crazy playoff ready by the time they had to play that wild card game against the Houston Texans, including CJ Stroud missing the game on Christmas Eve and having Case Keenum start that game against Joe Flacco instead of CJ Stroud starting that game like he did in the wild card game. And then also Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel both getting injured in that 49ers game, and a rookie kicker missing the potential game-winning kick. And then Trevor Lawrence suffering a horrible high ankle sprain 6 days before he played the Cleveland Browns. There were just a lot of things that happened that took the edge off some of those games. Of course, Aaron Rodgers didn't play when they played the Jets. He was not in that game. He hoped to maybe be back by then, but he never did make it back from his Achilles. So it was just a season in which they caught a lot of breaks. In fact, right from the start, they had Joe Burrow coming back off of not practicing in training camp at all with his calf injury. So you can't really definitively say what the schedule is going to turn out like, even if you're looking at strength of schedule based on win totals from the previous year.
Yeah, I mean, as we spent all this time talking about these games and who we think is going to win and lose, and sometimes it does just come down to who's hurt for how long, what's the weather, what's the is it a short week, is it a situation where you have to travel to London and the other team has been over there in that time zone for 10 days already, like we talked about off the top. Sometimes it really does just come down to stuff like that. So we spent all this time talking about it, and then the wrong guy gets hurt, and it just changes everything.
Yeah, luck plays a big role in whether or not you're making the playoffs. Luck has a lot to do with it. And of course, in the NFL these days, in my mind, it really is a game of attrition. Who is still standing by the time that you get to the end of the season? And I hate that part about the NFL. I hate that because you want to see the best of the best and the brightest players playing in the home stretch and in the playoffs. And a lot of times a lot of those guys are out injured by the time you get to that point. And I think that's unfortunate. I think the NFL is going to have to find a way to make sure that it keeps its quarterbacks and its star players a little healthier as they move through the season. But also, when you're talking about now all of these mobile quarterbacks that are running around all over the place, it is hard to keep those guys healthy.
Well, yeah, and now they want to go to like 18 games. So it seems like everything the NFL is doing is like counterproductive to trying to keep guys healthier. Now you're going to add another game. You're going to add more reps where, there's the potential for a guy to get hurt. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. And we're actually kind of seeing a little bit in the NBA now this year too, where, Steph Curry is out right now for the Warriors. We just saw Jason Tatum go down for the Celtics. The Cavs have been dealing with injury. Like, sports more and more really is becoming a battle of attrition, but football is just to a whole nother level because of just the way the game is and just how dangerous the game is.
It really is. I mean, these guys are so much bigger, faster, stronger than they were back in the day. So when you're having these violent collisions, and I mean, all you have to do is look at JOK last year having a violent collision with Derrick Henry, and now he's out for the whole entire season this year. That's so unfortunate. But there are a lot of injuries like that that are happening these days because of just the sheer absolute physicality of the game and how big and muscled up these guys are and how fast they are now and how fast everything is moving on that football field. But somehow they have to find a way to make this work. And like you said, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what the answer is, but you don't want to get to the end of the season and you're seeing backups in the playoffs. That's just not going to fly.
Okay, let's talk about, this is kind of a decent segue because we're going to talk a little bit about a quarterback who kind of ran into this during his time when he was with the Raiders, was having a really good year, got hurt, didn't get to start in the playoffs. Derek Carr, he retired. So that spurred this question from A-Rob in Des Moines. He says, hey, Mary Kay, with the Saints thin at quarterback after Derek Carr's retirement, could they come calling for the Browns, given Cleveland's depth? Who do you think they'd prefer? Flacco for his veteran stability, Pickett as a younger option familiar with Kellen Moore, or even one of the young players the Browns drafted?
Well, first of all, let me say that I don't think the Browns are willing to part with any of these guys right now. I think they're very excited about the quarterback room that they've put together. And I think they want to throw those guys out there, see what they have, and let the best man win. And they set it up the way they always intended to. They've got the savvy, experienced veteran in Joe Flacco. They've got the younger veteran in Kenny Pickett. And then they have not one rookie trying to win the job, but actually two. And of course, Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I don't think they're willing to part with any of these guys at this point. We know something's going to have to give by the time they get to the final cutdown date, or they get into the season a few weeks and they're getting closer to, the trade deadline or even before that. But something is going to have to give, but that sometime is not now. I don't think that anyone can come calling for any of these guys unless, of course, someone makes them some type of a crazy offer that they can't refuse. Short of that, they're going into at least OTAs, minicamp, and probably training camp with all four of the guys that we know that are vying for this job right now. I think once you get to the end of that, okay, so it's getting ready to be cut down day. I do think that there is a chance that someone like maybe a Joe Flacco, depending on how the young guys are doing, would be available in a trade. And there probably is a decent chance that teams will come calling for somebody like that with that kind of experience who picked himself up off the mat in 2023 here and really show that he can still play some high level and some good football. I still see the Browns trying to revive and rebuild the career of Kenny Pickett. And I think he's probably going to look pretty good in training camp. That's one of the things that we've heard from people that have covered him in Pittsburgh is you guys are going to really, really be impressed with what you see of Kenny Pickett in training camp because that's how it went in Pittsburgh. It's when he gets into the games that he has to elevate his game and take it to a new level. Now, certainly, Kellen Moore is probably intrigued by him and would like to get his hands on him. But that's not going to happen now, perhaps down the road. But if he is playing as well as the Browns hope that he plays, they are not going to part with him. And let me say one more thing about Kenny Pickett and Kellen Moore. I think that Kenny Pickett is going to be a significantly better version of himself than he was in Pittsburgh for having spent that season in Philadelphia with the Eagles and with Kellen Moore. He's great with quarterbacks. He did a great job with Jalen Hurts, and I think he probably really helped Kenny Pickett with his game.
I also think it's worth noting, just as far as the Saints are concerned, and that scenario, they drafted Tyler Shook at number 40. So, he's probably the guy that they want to get a look at this year anyway. And, they had a chance to draft Dillon Gabriel. They had chances to draft Shedeur Sanders, right? So it seems to me like those two guys would be off the table regardless. And I added those two guys in. Our texter didn't include them. But also, they could have signed Joe Flacco if they wanted to. And I think the Derek Carr kind of uncertainty was out there when Joe Flacco was still available. Obviously, Pickett, the Browns were pretty aggressive and went and got him, which we've talked about. But I think if you're the Saints and you get a look at Tyler Shook this year, who is an older prospect, so what are you waiting for to get him on the field? And if it doesn't go great, guess what? They're in the same boat that the Browns might be in next year. There's a really strong quarterback class coming, and we don't know what he's going to do yet, but the grandson of a guy who's in your Ring of Honor could be in that quarterback class. So it's kind of I don't want to say a win-win for the Saints because they would lose a lot of games, but get a look at Tyler Shook and some of your kind of what the Browns are doing right now. Get a look at some of these young quarterbacks you have on your roster. And if it doesn't work out, then you fix it in the draft next year.
Right. And they definitely could find themselves in that situation. And then the other thing to consider is they could also possibly bring back Jameis Winston because they have a surplus in New York with those guys there with Russell and Jameis Winston now. And, that's an area that they could kind of try to find something there. So, Russ is going to be the starter and that leaves Jameis kind of on the outside looking in a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if Jameis's agent has already called the Saints to say, hey, in the event that you guys are looking for something, maybe make an offer or whatever. So it's something to kind of keep an eye on, but I just don't think it's anything where somebody's coming after one of the Browns quarterbacks anytime soon.
Okay, speaking of Browns quarterbacks, let's talk about one of the younger guys. I've heard this question thrown out before, and so we're going to go to Greg in Cherry Valley, California. Hey, Mary Kay, would Dillon Gabriel have been a first-round pick if he were 2 inches taller?
Well, I'm not 100% certain that he would have been a first-round pick, but he probably would have been a second-round pick. I could have seen him being a second-round pick. And I do think that the 2 inches made all the difference in the world. Because, yes, you are an outlier if you were going to make it in this league when you're 5'11 or close to 5'11 or whatever it is that he truly is. That is not an easy thing to do. Easier now when people are using their whole entire talent pool in terms of being able to run and do all that kind of stuff and using some spread and whatnot. So it is easier to succeed as a shorter quarterback now, but you still are, for all intents and purposes, you're an outlier. Now we're seeing Baker Mayfield succeed. You've got Russell Wilson out there succeeding. You've got Kyler Murray. So there are shorter quarterbacks that are having success, but it is a little bit of an uphill climb for those guys.
Yeah, I like a first round pick is kind of a big leap, I think, but I think he would have been more interesting to teams if he were Shedeur Sanders' height, right? I mean, what is Shedeur, 6'2"? So Shedeur is not the biggest guy in the world, but if he would have had his college tape at that height, that takes away a barrier that some teams might put up when they first meet the guy. He walks in the room and he's 5'10", 5'11". Like, I don't know if this really is the type of quarterback we're looking for. it's a barrier. And so, yeah, I think maybe some teams might have been more willing to take him. He might have been on more even footing with a guy like a Tyler Shook, or, I know that the Giants traded up to get Jackson Dart, but he's a guy that went close to the second round, like 25 or 26, I think. So he might have found himself a little more in that range than in the 90s. But also, even in the 90s, I think there's a lot of people that were shocked to see him go that high. So I don't know. Maybe he would have just ended up in the third round anyway.
Well, it almost seems like, except for like a Kyler, that when you have that height issue, that you're going to fall somewhere into like the third round, like Russ did. So it's about where I expected him to go in this draft, at at best. But I definitely think that if he had 2 or 3 inches on him, and if he were 6'2", I think that he definitely would have gone. I'm going to say second round. I'm going to say maybe mid second round is where he would have gone.
I think you might be right. I mean, there's some impressive tape of him when you watch some of those Oregon games. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me, honestly. Okay, this sticks with the draft, but it kind of goes away from the quarterbacks, and this comes from Kevin in Loveland, Colorado. Hey, Mary Kay, not sure if you remember one of the Hey Mary Kay questions from a few months ago, part of which was the team needing more dogs, like in Detroit. I think there's and I think Andrew Berry might have listened. He points to Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger, Harold Fannin, Quinshon Judkins, guys who he kind of categorizes as dogs. Do you think that Andrew Berry kind of considered that personality, that competitiveness, that because it does seem like these guys, like we've seen him draft Ced Tillman and David Bell and Martin Emerson, although Martin Emerson's got a little dog in him. They've drafted a lot of nice guys, which is fine. But it seems like a lot of these guys they're bringing in this year do have that little bit of there's a little something extra there with some of these guys.
Well, they do. They definitely do have that, but they're still drafting, and not that there's anything wrong with this whatsoever, but they still seem like really, really nice guys, right? I mean, Carson Schlesinger has so many things to like about his football game. And he's got high football acumen, he's got speed, he's got range, he can cover, he can do so many things. But I I still think of him as like he's a really nice guy. And same thing with Mason Graham. Mason, when you get him out on the football field, 100%, he plays like he's like a nasty dude, but he's really not. I mean, you talk to him and it's like, wow, you must really have to flip a switch to go out there and play the way that you do, because at least for now, it seems like they're finding that mix between good guy off the field, a little bit brings a little bit of nastiness on the field. And so if they hit that sweet spot, then they're going to be in really good shape, because we've seen what Quinshon Judkins can do. We've seen what Carson can do on the field. We've seen what Mason Graham can do. So yeah, I do think on the field, some dog, off the field, really, really nice guys.
Yeah, Quinshon I think sums that up too, because we all know we've that running style that he has is that tough. I mean, I always think of Kareem Hunt with just how physical he runs and how he looks for contact, and he's talked about kind of loving it when Ohio State leaned on him late in games and he'd just kind of wear teams down. He's got some nasty to him when he runs, but yeah, and whenever we've talked to him, he's got a big smile on his face and he answers questions and he seems like a really nice. I watched a lot of the running backs, with Deuce Staley this week or last weekend, and he was, again, he was having fun. He was out there, he was putting in the work, but he was having fun and interacting with guys. Like I think there is sort of that switch that these guys can flip when they get on the field that makes them a little different than what we've seen when they're not on the field at this point.
Well, it's funny because from the jump, you have mentioned that that Quinshon reminds you a little bit more of Kareem, and I have drawn comparisons a little bit more to Nick. And I think the more I think about it, I think he's an amalgamation of both of those guys. I think he has Nick traits and Kareem traits, and I think that's going to be pretty cool because he's got some of the the upbeat personality, he's got some of that nastiness on the field, and yet he's got some of that just unbelievable workout warrior that Nick has in terms of just squatting 600 pounds and just the way that he is built. I mean, my goodness. And like you said, just wanting, seeking out that contact and wanting to get that ball and get stronger in the fourth quarter of a football game. Those are things that remind me of Nick Chubb. So I think people are going to see a lot of Nick Chubb in there and a fair amount of Kareem in there. And how can you go wrong with that combo?
Yeah, for me, the Kareem part of it is just the like I'm thinking about the touchdown he scored again. I think it was in the national title game, where it's just like he was going to get in the end zone. Like give him the ball, he was going to get in the end zone. It didn't matter who was in his way, and that's sort of the Kareem Hunt part of it. Just like I'm going to be a battering ram, and I'm just gonna. I don't care who you are. I'm going to run through you, and so that's the Kareem I see. But you're right. I mean, I think there's I think what makes him intriguing is he's probably got some of that vision that Nick Chubb has, and he's probably got some of that patience that Nick Chubb has too. Whereas Kareem could be a little reckless sometimes, just like I'm going to put my head down and run you over. I think Quinshon has a little bit of that in him, but I think as a bell cow type back, I think he might resemble a little more Nick Chubb.
Well, the thing about these two backs is it seems as though both of them are trending towards being able to be used on any down and being able to stay on the field for three downs if necessary, and doing some different things. Now, Dillon's not a real big guy, but I think that he can get the job done in just a little bit of a different way. Smaller, shiftier, catch the ball out of the backfield kind of guy, but you can still get some good things out of him, I think, on first and second down. And then Quinshon is adding in catching the ball out of the backfield. I think it's going to be a dynamite 1-2 combo.
Okay, let's get to a couple roster moves the Browns made yesterday. Obviously, they bring in DeMonte Casey, who played for Pittsburgh, and then Rashawn Slater as well, a couple of safeties. So that prompted this question from Pat Flynn, again, in Lakewood, Colorado. Hey, Mary Kay, are there any other positions where the Browns need to shore up depth like they did this week with the safety position?
I keep thinking there's another cornerback coming around the bend somewhere, right? Because Andrew Berry loves cornerbacks. These guys love defensive backs. And for whatever reason, I just keep thinking that maybe they will add another one somewhere. But they're pretty well stocked at the position. I mean, now Greg Newsome is still here. He hasn't gone anywhere. He hasn't gotten traded. So I think they feel like they're in pretty good shape there. And of course, they need Martin Emerson to rebound a little bit. I think one of the ways they can help make that happen is take a little bit of pressure off him, perhaps. Maybe put a little bit more zone into the scheme, not always have him out on an island, get him a little bit more help. But I do think that that's one spot that I always keep thinking that you can never have too many of those guys. And then, edge rusher. I still could see another edge rusher being added, but for the most part, this is a pretty complete roster. I mean, they're pretty much done by the time you get to this point. There will be a few stragglers that come in. There will be things that get shaken up at the bottom of the roster for the most part after the season starts, probably, or after the final cuts. But I think what you see right now is pretty much what you're going to get.
That's kind of where I'm at too. And I think the cornerback thing is partially just because they didn't draft a corner this year, which has been an MO of Andrew Berry. And I think in every draft prior to this one, he has drafted a cornerback, so, or at least a defensive back. So he didn't do that this year, in part because they traded up for Shador. I feel okay about that room. Obviously, if guys start getting hurt, you're going to be scrambling. Linebacker took a hit with JOK. We kind of knew that was coming, but they at least addressed that with Schlesinger. Receiver is still one of those positions that I'm worried about. At least at edge rusher, there's bodies there, So you throw Alex Wright at it, and then Isaiah McGuire, and you still got Obo and Joe Tryon Shoyinka, and they've got some guys that they can throw at that position. At least whether they work or not, we'll see. I worry that wide receiver could get really thin really quickly if somebody gets hurt. They're pretty good with Jerry Jeudy, obviously, but Said Tillman is coming back from that concussion. David Bell is coming back from that hip injury. That room feels to me like it can get very thin very quickly if the wrong guys get hurt.
Yeah, I've been saying for a while now that I thought that they needed another Pro Bowl caliber receiver. They don't really see it that way because they're going to be playing more 12 personnel, two tight ends, more 13 personnel, three tight ends this season, and not as much 11 personnel, which is three wides. So, because of that, they don't need a surplus necessarily of receivers, but I always feel like they leave themselves a little bit short in that regard. I mean, look, when you look at the Bengals and you think of their heyday of having those three amazing receivers with T and Tyler and Jamar, I don't think you can have too many good receivers. I just don't. I don't think you can. Now I think the Browns are excited about Harold Fannin and that they're kind of focusing a little bit more on the tight end, and they feel like they got themselves another really good pass catcher in Harold Fannin, even though he's a tight end. So they're looking at it more globally than just the wide receiver position. But I still think this football team needs at least one more really good quality, top notch receiver.
Yeah, and I don't know if they'll ever admit this, but I do feel like there just is an element this season of this. There is an opportunity here to find out about young guys that maybe you didn't have before, because I think they know kind of deep down that you know they're trying to win, but also this team's not going to the Super Bowl, so it's okay if you use this season to kind of find out about some of these young guys who maybe haven't gotten opportunities because you've been all in, right? Like defensive tackle, you're going to get some young guys out there. Edge rush, you're going to get young guys out there. Again, wide receiver still feels thin even in that context, but um, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there if they're kind of looking at this and saying there's just some positions where we have some draft picks that we want to find out about this year.
Right. And then the other thing that we are seeing happen right now with the wide receiver position is they are adding some tryout players, some undrafted rookies to this football team because talk about bodies, they need bodies for this quarterback competition. And in order for them to have somewhat of a level playing field where you're comparing apples to apples, they're going to have to do some concurrent drills where you're going to have uh, some really good guys working over here with Kenny Pickett and some really good guys working over here with Dillon Gabriel. And then when they shift to Joe and Shador, and it's going to have to be the same thing. So they've got strength in numbers right now in the receiving core. And sometimes what happens when you do that is one or two guys emerge and they kind of come out of nowhere, where all of a sudden you find yourself with a kind of no name receiver that makes something of himself, like Kevin Stefanski was talking about Adam Thielen doing in Minnesota. So hopefully for them, in a perfect world, someone will emerge like that and become something for them because this team really needs it.
I'll own this. This is the laziest comp in the world, but maybe Luke Floria can become a little mini Julian Edelman for for the Browns.
There you go. Let's do it. Go Flashes.
Abe in Huntington, West Virginia. Speaking of rookie minicamp, hey Mary Kay, we love to talk quarterback. I'm okay with that, but I want to know who are your biggest positives at rookie minicamp.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was very impressed with all of the draft picks. And I already mentioned Carson Schlesinger. I mean, if I had to pick somebody to get like defensive MVP from the week, it would be him. I mean, he looked really, really good. And he did end the second day that we were out there with grabbing an interception. But just in terms of knowing where to be and understanding the fits and just assimilating the new scheme, I thought he did a really nice job. I thought he stood out. Mason, it's a little harder to tell how your uh, defensive tackles are doing in a setting like this, but you could see what he's all about, even in just individual drills and going up against the blocking sleds and stuff like that. You can see the explosiveness. You can see the violent hands and things like that. But I would have put Carson ahead of him just in terms of this rookie minicamp performance. Um, I thought Harold Fannin had a really nice. I feel like every time I looked up, Harold Fannin was catching some kind of pass or a touchdown pass.
I was going to say him too, because it felt like, I'd see a completion, and then I haven't registered all these guys' numbers yet. I'd see a completion and I'd say, "Oh, who was that?" And it was 88. Oh, Harold Fannin. Yeah, so it seemed like he was just constantly catching the football this last weekend.
He really was. He really was. I mean, he looks like he is ready to step in there in two receiver formations and do some really really good things with David Njoku. So I don't know. I really felt good about a lot of these guys. And with the running backs, you can easily see how their game can translate to the NFL. It's one of the easiest positions to plug a player in from college and have it look a whole lot like what they did at their previous level. And especially with Quinshawn, I could see it. I could absolutely see it. And I think that week one, especially behind a really good offensive line, I think he's going to make some hay and do a really nice job.
Well, as we're talking about this, it just kind of hit me, and I've got good news for somebody that I know listens to this podcast a lot. Our buddy Nate Ulrich, who works for the Beacon, used to be on the Browns beat with us. The Maurice Bassett Award is going to be very competitive this year. I think we can. There's quarterbacks involved. There's a tight end involved. There's running backs involved. For those that don't know, we give that award every year to the best rookie in Browns training camp. I don't have the list of winners in front of me. I just had to Google what the award was. But this could be one of the more competitive Maurice Bassett Award years, Mary Kay.
I think it could be. Well, in previous years, at least in this regime, we haven't had any quarterbacks vying for the award. So that lends a lot of drama and intrigue to it. And then again, once again, when you have a running back picked so high, who is going to be the bell cow of your offense, that's going to translate well. He's going to look good in camp. Then you've got Mason and Carson, who I think will stand out on defense. Harold, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a very, very heated battle for the Maurice Bassett Award.
A little Maurice Bassett talk. I'm just looking at some of the names that have won just in my Google search. Cade York has won it. Harrison Bryant has won it. It was Dorian Thompson Robinson won the award. So I don't know. Maybe people don't want to win this award, but yeah, this is going to be a very competitive. I don't know if like DraftKings or somebody will have odds out for the Browns Maurice Bassett Award, but this is going to be a big year for it. I'm excited. I can't wait to cast my vote for that.
Who do you think is going to win it?
Oh boy. Harold Fannin.
Okay. That's a good one.
I think he might just catch a bunch of passes.
Yeah, I can
he
see
might
it.
win it. But I could make a case. I could also make a case for Schlesinger if he has like 3 interceptions or something.
Yeah. And who knows? One of the quarterbacks could.
That's true. Really, yeah, that's the wild card.
That's the big wild card. If they look good, one of those guys can sweep in and grab the coveted Maurice Bassett Award.
Oh, I'm glad we're bringing light to this. Dan Murphy will be happy to hear that too.
Of course.
That'll do it for this Hey Mary Kay edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Those questions came from our Football Insider subscribers, cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Of course, you can find us on Instagram, Orange and Brown Talk. Twitter is Orange Brown Talk, and our YouTube. We put full pods up there. There's shorts. Again, if you missed anything from Rookie Minicamp, you can still go back there and see a bunch of shorts, a bunch of highlights, videos from the weekend. A lot of people were watching those, so go back and check those out if you didn't. That's Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. Mary Kay, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds great.